Okay, thanks. Hello, Internet. I'm live streaming this because my friends in various parts of the country want to see it. So, my name is Nemo Sundry, and as you can see, to make it perfectly clear, number one, Goodwill told me this. I had to get it. Yeah, I am a classical composer. I do a lot of genre mixing, so it's very contemporary. And in the rest of my life, I'm also a youth advocate and counselor, and I focus on self-determination, trauma healing, and economic empowerment. But we're here today for musicalness. So if anyone wants to join me, I want to start with a warm-up that I call the motivator. But I'm going to do it just to demonstrate too. If you're comfortable, you can stand up with me and just be extra silly. I really encourage you to get out of your shell. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. You can also do it sitting, whatever's comfortable. But I'm going to demonstrate. Just follow with me. So just start by shaking out your hands, just kind of nice and comfortable. Get rid of the tension and kind of move to the shoulders and legs, kind of bounce up and down. Yeah. And also we're going to shake out our voices and then just kind of follow what I do. And it means, this is what it means. Move the hands up. Get really into it. Like you're going to die if you're not excited. And start to bring down next hand slow and relax. Let it go. Yeah. Okay, you can stay standing or sit down where it's comfortable. And that's that. That's called the motivator. And I like to open with things that are nice and physical because I believe that if you want to make good stuff, if you want to create really well, even if it's not music, there's a physiological component that's really important. And that's that. But I guess just to move from that into my introduction, I have 4 tenets that I call the tenets of creation, and they're guiding principles that keep me motivated, keep me from getting stuck in a rut, and they keep me relatively creative. It's like igniting the fire and keeping it alive if you want to create anything. And the beautiful thing is they can apply to pretty much all of life. And so the first one is play. Play is an action that you take that is fulfilling for its own right. There's not necessarily any end goal, and when there are end goals, play is the main focus. And also, usually play is motivated by curiosity and intrinsic motivation. But the beautiful thing about it too is that even if you feel like a piece of shit and you're like, I'm not motivated, I don't care, I'm just gonna go lay down. If you get up and play, it can actually re-alive that. That's why I like the physical feeling. What we just did with the motivator, that's actually an adaptation from a move in a Chinese practice called Qigong. It's kind of like Tai Chi. And it circulates the energy in your body and it balances it out. And it can be also the gravity can release the tension in your body. So it can be simultaneously energizing and relaxing. So there's a physiological component when you play an instrument, like singing or wind instruments especially, can actually be both energizing and relaxing. So the second tenet of creation is improvisation. I consider this more specific than play underneath that umbrella. Improvising is a series of actions that you take without knowing what the next step is, without any particular plan, and you just make it up as you go. I think improvisation is one of the most important skills you can have in life at all, to be able to roll with the punches. Whatever action you take, whatever activity you're pursuing, if something comes up that you're not expecting, it's like, wow, this is going to be a shit show. If you can respond to it as it is, it's going to turn out better in the end, even if things feel like they're falling apart. And I love to apply improvisation in music, because if you make a mistake in music or you're stuck composing, it's not a big deal. It's a nice realm to practice before you get out into the world where real consequences can be disastrous. So it's just such a wonderful thing to show how music can be applied in so many different ways to the rest of life, and that's really what I try to focus on. But so the third tenet of creation is to keep going. So you've been playing, you've been improvising, and you want to have the willingness to show up every time and keep doing it. The willingness and the endurance to keep going long enough until you see that moment of transformation. Transformation is what most people would think of as like an end goal. Oh, wow, I've been dedicated to this and now it sounds good, it's getting somewhere. I'm satisfied with the end result. But the process is equally as important, because the only way you're going to get to a moment of transformation is if you are dedicated. And it builds your endurance to keep going in other areas of life too. And what's really important about that as well is, I think failure is an illusion. Some people say that success is a series of failures leading up to the success, but I would go even further than that and say that failure is an illusion that is created when you don't see the process through to the end. The process of creation gets interrupted, and it feels horrible because you actually want to fulfill the whole thing. This is also like biological and psychologically true for kids when they're growing up. They need that free play. And if it gets interrupted, that can be felt as failure later on. So keep going. Unless you really want to quit, then you can do something else and keep going. Yeah, you don't have to, be a slave to yourself. But nonetheless, the final tenet is to recognize worthiness. This one is the hardest of them all. And so what you want to do or aim for as a goal, as a result, is to care for life, living beings, and your creations as if they are naturally worthy and the source of beauty and purpose. It's very difficult to do this, especially if you've ever been through a bout of depression or nihilism, or you're dealing with countless times where people have hurt you, you've been burned by the world, where terrible things have happened and you have no control over anything but yourself. And so this one is last for reasons, because after you've been doing the other three, regardless of what happens outside of your control, you will naturally start to recognize worthiness. You will start to care more naturally. You can't force yourself to do it, or it just feels fake. But anytime you realize, even just a little moment, I actually care here. I know this is worthy. I can recognize it. Notice that and care for it, and it will grow, especially as you keep creating. It starts to get exciting, especially if you finally hit those transformational moments. It really takes off. So that's the 4 tenets of creation. That's kind of my introduction. With that, I'm going to play a song just as an example. This song is 2 separate improvisations that came together, and it was lyrical, which at the time I was just messing around. I didn't even know it would be lyrics, ultimately. And the other one was guitar, and I played in a way that I had never played before. And I didn't know where it was going to go, and it actually sounded kind of shitty. I'm like, I'm just going to keep going with this, and this is the final result. Okay, this is called Toil in the Water.
Suddenly in the water, waves fall upon your shoulders, like pain shoots around the sky, waves of flurry, clouded as you stole on my gaze, and I watched as your rebellion, so I crackled in you. And I fell apart in the water, sparks collided with the depths, settling in the oceans without earth. You toil in the water, do you know the sea? Your storms don't keep up, you can go. The scars tell the truth, no horizons is a blindfold, and even the blindfold shows you there's no escape. Built in the depths of the ocean blue, moving as the dark, dark is a friend, and no cover.
outfit too. He was hiding the whole time. That gets really hot after a couple minutes. Yeah, that's Toil in the Water. Before I bombard you with more stuff, does anybody have like questions or comments? You can throw it out anytime, as long as I finish my sentence. Otherwise, I can keep rolling. Because I toil in the water. Haha, that just happened. Yeah. What's next? Oh, yeah. I have a claim that two claims actually that I'd like to make and throw out at you when it comes to music. They're not necessarily objective or like definitively true. This is just how I like to pursue creating, and it gives me peace of mind. I consider first that all composing is improvisation. When it's finished and other people play it, it's not improvising because they're performing something else that I can actually see then and there. There's a plan. But if you're in the midst of composing, it's like you don't necessarily know what you're doing. And if you treat it like improvisation, then it can really lighten up the mood, and you maybe get less controlling and you loosen up. And so that was the first claim. The second one is that originality is a well-crafted illusion. Note that I say well-crafted, because a lot of people in the last, say, maybe 30 years have started to notice that with the transparency of the internet and the connectedness that we have, that there's just so many people creating, putting stuff online, and it's overwhelming to get lost in the middle. I mean, how many people want to be the next singer-songwriter playing guitar? It can be like I am the smallest fish in a big sea. And there's also like, it's very easy to find some of the world's best stuff that's constantly being made. So it really feels like originality is an illusion, that it's really almost impossible to come up with something that someone can't say, yeah, that kind of sounds like this, or wow, it sounds too close to this, you're plagiarizing. So it is a difficult challenge to deal with. But what allowed me to move on was just, I don't really care to try to be original. I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to make something that I love and I care for. And the other part of it is that because it is well crafted, people do hear something or see something and like, wow, I haven't really seen that thing before. And so there's a sense of if something has enough variables that give it flair or is uncommon, especially in the era that we're currently in, maybe you do a throwback and you combine it with new stuff from like 50 years ago. People haven't heard that like more recently, and they perceive it as original. And so I say I just let go of the obsession with it, and I just kind of move on and I have fun, because as far as I'm concerned, this whole thing is just a game. That's the way I play it. I mean, they say going to play, not going to work. But that's that. With that, I want to talk about the next song I'm going to play for you. This one is, the first one I played is kind of lyrical fusion. It's not really classical. This next one is like really, it's hard to say what exactly it is, but it is instrumental and quasi-classical. It's called Prisoner of Sounds, and I wrote it at the end of 2016. And this is probably one of my craziest and best compositions, and it's wild that it even happened. But I was at the peak of frustration in dealing with not being able to find like real musicians that would be willing to play music with me. I've been trying to do this for so long, and it's actually really hard if you don't already have connections. Just getting people to care and show up is difficult enough, and that is a very real barrier that you would deal with. Maybe if you're connected in the university, which I'm not, that can give you some connections. It depends on the person, but there is a big problem culturally that I'd say, I don't know if it existed in the past before I was born, but I think it's happening around me, and I call it mass chronic apathy, where getting people to be as motivated and passionate as I am is very difficult. And if you want to do that, you're basically leading the way. But it is, since it is a barrier that we're dealing with, what you can do is learn to build other paths and build your other skills even better. So you might be dealing with this isolation, or maybe the musicians you have are just not that good, whatever you can find. But if you become really competent as a creator, as the leader in your position, then you can make something really good that makes up for anything that you might be lacking. Especially since a lot of times the things we need to make music are also expensive. I mean, has anyone here heard of the Land Philharmonic Orchestra out of Venezuela? Yeah, this kind of engineer music guy, he started building instruments out of trash. Yeah. So that's like one way he became incredibly competent. And when I was at the peak of my frustration, and I was like hearing things and I wanted to bring them into reality, and I just wasn't happening because of my fundamental limitations. And I just sat down at the computer and used my composing program, and for 2 hours just made something. And what you're about to hear is almost entirely a first draft with like maybe 5% cleanup. And it's pretty crazy. Before I start though, just so you're aware, the instrumentation is ocarina, bass clarinet, bassoon, piano, and electric bass. Because in pushing myself to the next level, I wanted to push the limits of Finale, the program I use, and that instrumentation sounds really good, even electronically. So, no further ado, I'm going to play Prisoner of Sounds. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Hit him up, bring him down. I'm scrolling. Thank you. Yeah. So I think that I can hear like the frustration and the emotion, like almost the beauty and the tragedy in that song. And I create in a kind of intuitive way because of play and improvising. And so at times when I discover that I compose something that has a particular feel or emotion to it, it's really hard to gauge exactly why that is. I mean, the simplest way to pursue it is just major or minor, go with the classics. But one of my favorite scales to compose based on, or keys, is actually the church mode Lydian. So take whatever major key you have and make the fourth sharp. Just like a refresher, it sounds like so it has the sound of wonder. I think if you're gonna go with like a classic definition or way of looking at emotions tied to keys, you'd say major for happy, minor for sad, and then I would say Lydian is the key of wonder. That's the way I use it. And even maybe Locrian can be really hard to compose in Locrian. That's where you start on the 7th of a major key. I don't know if I could, well, I might be able to whistle that, but you can use your imaginations. Yeah, but does anybody have like any questions or comments they want to throw out there, or thinking anything, even something unrelated? Improvise your comments. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Bring it around 10. I'm just moving to my next section here. SpongeBob style. When it comes to transforming something in here into music out there, or whatever you want to create, you may have heard of the scientific phrase, matter is neither created nor destroyed, merely transformed. And so that's the way I look at it. I mean, you might be frustrated, and it might be, it's so easy to get demotivated. That's like the central motif that I have here, is how to find passion and motivation that is natural. And so one of the ways that I pursue that, especially if I want to keep creating music, I mean, I've experienced a lot of crazy shit. In mid-2016, I had to flee the house I was in because I almost got shot, and there was some mental health issues and a lot of drama in that house between like 8 people, and that was really unexpected. But I was able to improvise and respond to that. And so I took those skills forward. And if you're gonna, the other thing though is if you're gonna do anything that is really purposeful and meaningful to you, there's always gonna be at least some people who are gonna be threatened by that or have a major issue because they disagree, and you make yourself visible by being passionate. And so if you get really good at improvising and this process of creating and staying motivated in here, then you're just gonna be like a buoy in the ocean, and when the storms rise, you just bounce back up. And so using music for that, I think it's really fundamentally meaningful. I mean, a lot of people say, oh, you're going into music for a career? Good luck with that. You know, why don't you become a doctor? But you can find purpose in almost anything. If you have purpose in here, it's going to show through. And so I want to bring to you a word that you may have heard of before, may not. That word is transmutation. It's basically a synonym for alchemy. And transmutation as a word is mostly used by chemists, the transmutation of chemicals into others, and by Buddhists or people that follow that type of philosophy. In the kind of philosophical sense, transmutation is used mostly when you're looking at, here's this experience of like the deepest, grossest suffering and the most horrible thing that you could ever have experienced. And ultimately, eventually, it will change. Everything changes. And you have a choice within yourself of what change you want to aim for. And you can take whatever gets in here from the stupid outside world, toxifying you, if that's a word, and you can transmute it into anything else you can imagine. And if you don't do it consciously, it happens inevitably. If you have high stress and you're dealing with a situation where you're avoiding a conflict and it's building and building and building and you just don't even think about it, someday you might snap or you go to a deep depression. And that's the transmutation that's taking place. But you could also take ownership of that consciously and say, here's something I love, here's what I'm experiencing now, I'm going to transmute into something beautiful. It is my belief that the best transmutation, the raw material, is that suffering and that fear and that really intense feelings that you just automatically run away from, even without even realizing it. But that if you learn to, oh, I'm going to notice that. Oh, I'm running away. Oh, I'm going to come back. Okay, I'm here. I'm going to make some music. Otherwise, you could just sit and be miserable too. But you know, the choice is yours. Really, it's very difficult too. I'm not saying this is easy at all. I've been through this for many, many years. And so with that, I'm going to play 2 songs as my last 2 as an example of transmutation. Actually, I'm going to play 3 more songs if we have the time. But next 2 I'm going to play are directly relating to transmutation and taking some of the stuff that I've experienced that's been the most difficult and making it into music. I'm going to grab the guitar for this. first song is called Child of the Night, and this is dedicated to and about my close friend and roommate Allison Bailey. She died on December 29th of 2018 last year, and it was totally unexpected. So a lot of the lyrical meaning in this song is like directly relating to that situation and how she saw herself as she communicated it and the mystical and beautiful person that she was. Child of the night, paint your world in black and white. Carry all those heavy dreams, construct your symmetry to see the light. Caught up in a web, your photo shows the stripe. Wander on and on and on till you're gone, captured by the mind. And the rain swarms and drowns out your voice. You made one last choice, disillusion in white noise, disillusion in the void. My best friend, you saw the end and took flight, like a child of the night. Empty house and open doors. Colds took over those hollow rooms. With everything left untouched, abandoned at the dusk, you took your life with no goodbye. Carry me away across the ocean side. Carry me away to your favorite place to hide. And I'll keep all your secrets among the stars in the sky. It's too soon to go away. In the house we live, you could have stayed. But you knew the right time. As the child of the night. Yes. Mm-hmm.
How would you go about improvising with voice and lyrics? If you're mostly an instrumentalist.
Yeah, right. Singing is like the newest musical thing I've done. Good grab me. That wasn't a sentence. I combined like 2 cents improvising. Right? Good for having you. Dom told me there's a phrase that's Maryland-ish that's come through. You're gonna go with me? Come through, eh? I don't know. But to answer your question, singing is the newest thing I've done musically. I used to really struggle with it. Because I think the reason for me is I had a disorder where I had really low testosterone and my voice like only half dropped, and that was really weird, like to deal with, I guess. And then when I got testosterone, I was like, check out this bass. We're gonna go off with this. Yeah, we're gonna take flight. Well, so I kind of started singing accidentally. So like the first thing that happened was improvising. Most of my songs that are lyrical and guitar, actually I've noticed since I've tried to structure them more, they tend to follow the voice and not have as much of a time signature because the improvising was happening together when I wrote the songs. So that is something I've become aware of, but the easiest way for me to improvise the voice is not to worry about lyrics, even though I'm also a writer. If you want to like break it apart, just start singing something non-lyrical gibberish, and then write something separate, or then you can combine later to challenge yourself. Just to give like an example, this is literally what I started doing when I was singing, and I've been doing it so long now, this like singing gibberish that people say it sounds like a language. And I'm just doing it. But here's an example of that. Suturo non dei ascoletinya, siandai sotto non, kinaya korin, dai andaso, kai samato. That was all just improvising. But it doesn't mean anything. I'm not like giving you guys some little messages in Klingon. Yeah. Boy, that would be a trick.
Play the live video backwards.
Oh,
It's a message.
there are going to be people online doing that. Yeah.
So is this available? Is this music available online? Do you have this out anywhere?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, because well, I was just wondering how would you say the best way is to, because clearly you're making some incredible things. What's the best way to really get that out to people and get people interested in listening?
Yeah. Take what I give as advice with a grain of salt or just in context, because not many people know about my stuff right now. Dom is a true gem. The reason I'm here now, not just because he invited me, but like he found my music online without knowing me on SoundCloud under my name Nemo Sundry, and that's actually a stage name. But and he didn't know me, and then he found out we had 2 mutual friends on Facebook. I'm like, what are the odds of that? And then he messaged me. He's like, hey man, this is like really cool. I don't know exactly what he said, but
That sounds like me though.
I'm reimagining him as the dude, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, but so nonetheless, that was amazing. But otherwise, I've learned most of what I've learned for that kind of thing is through failure, and some of it is like I've stayed really passionate and dedicated, tried a million different angles, and some of it is like other people just not really being interested. That's like the biggest barrier you're going to deal with. And so what you want to focus on is don't try to like convince people to be interested. That's like spinning your wheels in the mud. Try to structure your like methods in a way where you aim for exposure. So you expose people, and you want to think like, what are the people who might actually be interested in this? That's why we have things like search engine optimization. Hey, you bought socks. You want to buy some more socks? It doesn't always work perfectly, but it is better than just blindly throwing things out there. But you can do some of that. Biggest thing for me is try to find some methodology that is personal so that you have some kind of connection to the people you're dealing with online, actually having a conversation with them, and find an environment where that topic has already come up so it doesn't seem like you're just doing the shameless plug. Like, check out my merch, it's sick, whatever. You want to have like connections to the people, but also like word of mouth. That has been really good for me. I did 1 open mic every week for the entire year of 2018. And people just like did standing ovations. One of the things one time I got a stage and 2 people tried to hug me. Someone else was shaking my hands. I still had my guitar on me. And the 3rd person or 4th, I don't remember, was just like, what do I do? And then he just like came up and patted me on the head. Good job. And I was like, this is the life. But like nonetheless, like having the personal connection really stands out. That's like the main thing. Try to do something that has flair. Try to make that personal connection. Yeah. Was that like too windy, or is that kind of a decent, like clarified?
I don't even remember my question, but it was all good information.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can always talk about more. I'm going to be here until tomorrow too. If anybody wants to find me through Dom, you can probably contact me. But yeah, Dom's the bomb, right? And Jack's a little whack. Jack's my real name. Yeah, and Nemo, you found him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna check the time so that I'm not going crazy here. 1:11. Okay, that's probably good. That's Gucci. All right, I'm gonna play one last song on guitar. This one's long, so get nice comfortable. It's about 7.5 minutes. Although if you're in like a classical environment, maybe that's not long to you, which is nice. So you're like, yeah, yes, finally, my environment, my people. But then I'm gonna play one other song that's somewhat modern classical on the speakers. So this one is called Dissolution, and it's another one relating to that whole kind of transmutation deal. And Dissolution is the most intense song I've ever composed. All the songs I play voice and guitar have like winds and strings backing them, and that would have been too crazy to get to come out here. So we're going really minimal right now, inspired by film class. Right? But Disillusion is basically about this parallel path that I've experienced that I believe is true for other people. It has some archetypal truth to it as far as your experience can go, where it's this parallel path between both what you might call enlightenment or like letting go of deep resistance and that surrender that I call disillusion. It's a more flexible term, so you don't have to hash out the definitions. Anytime you have experienced something that's just awful and you're really stuck and you're clinging and you really just are wishing for something to get better, and when you finally let go of that and there's like that deep surrender, that is what I would call disillusion. But also the secondary path that is very similar to this of healing from trauma, like the deep physiological healing, because I've been through that for the last 8 years with my PTSD, and it's been significantly transformative. And between both of those paths, I'm like, this is incredible how similar they are. So there's a lot of metaphors for both of those things, and there's like even metaphors for the physiology of healing from trauma. So without further ado, this is Disillusion. Confiscate my memories, confiscate my memories, to mend this suffering, make me amnesiac, allergic to my dreams, confiscate my memories, confiscate my memories, to end this suffering, make me amnesiac, allergic to my dreams, falling down a jagged cliff, wading through the white abyss, lightning flashes, the beast traps your mind, and you reminisce, and you reminisce, and tell the wise man I've seen the light through the broken pendulation, 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 inundated by the screams, inundated by the screams, inundated by the screams. Getting pulled under the tide, obscured by its shadowy azure, hiding in plain sight. I can't keep up the fight, I can't keep up the fight, I can't keep up the fifth right. I'll witness all my own crimes as the cry for the end of times, as the end of constructed pain. My lone flight into the cosmic width, seeking for a cure, yet the seeking is the lure. Off the beat I fall asleep, sink into calm coma. The resurrection holds me to a truth until I express its lifeblood, life's love. The expression is the being, and my life leads the seeing. Take it all away, raise my mind's eye. I can't live this anymore. Burn the phoenix, let it die. And tell the wise man, oh, tell the wise man, I'm awakening, and I am breaking in the fall into deep dark. Drown my being in the deep. The echo shadows up they creep. Taste the dissolution, my original identity. Such creation as the one thing of all things that defines the great play, that defines playing the wild way, where wild ways and things are enlivened to a fuller potential. It's a potent calm, yet temptation creates its own withdrawal. And the birds soared above horizons that burned a million years past, and the hooks catch and drag me back to the trench, hooked by its toxic stench, as if gravity were my enemy, caught me up in its web. But I don't need flight to re-become wildlife and undomesticate my bones. My home is within my heart, even post-storm, after it's tore up apart. I might be suffering, but at least I'm not hypothetical. Don't drown my soul in deep red. Existence isn't dead. We revive and restore and recognize what's really here. What do I really fear? I'll follow the drum of my own heart instead. Confiscate my memories. Someday they will return to me, like the tiger flown away. Butterfly it returns to play. Binary becoming one dissolves into final sun, and then I am infinity. Sanaya Kyoran Ekata Sneya Sumi Sneyanda Sum Antura. Ooh, my hands are tingly. I get so excited when I'm like playing music with people. That combination is fire. Ooh. Okay. Among. I have one other song I'd like to play. It's about 4.5 minutes. And if y'all are up for it, I left the end open, maybe like 20 or 30 minutes, and we can play some improvisation games. I have opportunities. We can just make it up as we go, or also room for questions, all that. Dom, did you feel lonely in your corner? You have to join the crowd.
Might as well not be here.
Yeah. This song is called Will and Heart, and it is, I chose this one in very specifically, it was one of the ones I play here as an example of polyphony. Someone told me years ago it was polyphony. I'm like, what? At least I'm not like accidentally saying polygamy. No, not that. Polyphasic sleeping. I don't know, all the polys. This is Will and Heart, and it has a lot of polyphony in it, and it has a lot of play with like counter melody, because I look at composing with polyphony as there's a gradient to it. In its most extreme form, you have multiple melodies, but then you can also have the main melody and a counter melody. And it makes it so much easier to compose something where every line or every group or section has its own kind of flair and originality, where it's not just throwing chords on a page. If you do that, you're relying on the melody to carry everything through in terms of the interestingness of it. And so this has like 2 to 3 melodies at any given time, and a lot of complexity in the syncopation. And so with no further ado, I give you Will and Heart. Okay, that was good. My hands are recovered now. I can feel them again. Yeah. When you only have four senses and you have to give a presentation. Oh, whoa, boy. Anybody want to like bring up any questions or discussion or just like things you? Do anyone here like? Have you ever composed, or is this kind of a more of a musician?
They're all
No, we're all composers.
Yes,
We're all
nailed it. Oh, this is awesome. This like maybe like the most people, the composers I've been in a room with at one time.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
20 minutes ago, you were in a room with 2 more composers.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, I wonder if it counts what we went to yesterday at the museum. There's some composers there, but
That's true.
I mean, so if you're all composers, like, tell me, like, what have you found that's worked really well for you? What's like a struggle you've had? You know, think of something. Like, I want to like riff on stuff with you. Anybody?
From that's my perspective, it's been traditional, but in terms of, because I'm more of like a classical orchestra, like that sort
Yeah.
of sector of it. But for me, like a lot of things that you're saying and speaking kind of resonated to me as well, like with the whole pushing towards, having inclusivity, pushing towards not having like this toxic behavior. I remember me talking about it, about not having this sort of culture of like just closeness and not being open to collaborate and stuff like that. But for me, my way of thinking is more of composing is a take on culture, on how we are, our position, my position, whatever we are. And the way, because I agree as well as like, our composition is an originality, like it's a facet of our like, a facade of originality. Because to me, what I think is I stand in the giants of other people, like Mahler, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, those people, I stand on the shoulders of those people. And although I can never be original, I can express myself in that certain way. I can make something out of whatever's been behind me.
Yeah. Wow, that's a really good balance. It's like this give and take. Have you ever heard that TED Talk, Everything is a Remix? Yeah.
I've seen that, yeah.
Right?
Great,
Yeah, man, that's crazy. Yeah, wow. Man, you got it.
It's been more of not, I'd say, my personal journey has not been the quest for originality, but rather more of bringing people in and saying that, look, we can do this. And there's no need for other BS around it. Because besides both of us, me specifically, I'm also an orchestral conductor, playing a composer.
Cool.
And the thing about it is having that, like, you find that uphill battle of I'm the one who's, who just by luck or whatever it is, and I have these ideals and these things that I'm able to express myself. It's more bringing people along with this journey. Obviously, being the leader, the conductor, stuff like that.
Yeah. With conducting, it's kind of a paradox in a way too. I have done very little conducting, but I have done some. Yeah, keep it sharp and do mustache, right? I don't know. You ever heard the mustache? Okay, good. Yeah. Well, one of my favorite conductors of all time when I was playing in like an orchestra. I really specialize in woodwinds and strings. Music I presented today is more non-traditional, but I do have a lot of like full orchestral and quartet and chamber pieces too. But Gerald Jones in Minnesota, he actually won like an award of top conductor of the year in Minnesota for like the state in 2013. Just like an amazing person, and every time you get up there, he would say like if you would start, especially like big rehearsal, and he's like giving us that hurrah before we go up on stage, and he would say two things. He'd first say, if you are not giving every ounce of your love and dedication to this piece when you perform, and you're not crawling off the stage when you're done, you haven't given enough. Which meant that usually about a third of the people would crawl off the stage, even if they don't have to, just to show him. But the other thing he would say is, I'm just the guy waving the stick. You can look to me for support because I am your number one supporter, but I am not the boss. And then he would point usually to the first chairs and he would say, you got this, you got this, you got this. And then everyone, you can take ownership of your role too. And like putting it in the perspective, like there's a lot of people that don't really want to take responsibility because it's daunting and it's stressful. Like when I was a kid, I was so sheltered. I didn't have the opportunity to be responsible until I got out of there when I was a teenager. But if you frame it in a way of like, this is part of your ownership and your autonomy, your independence, then it's like a gift. It's not a punishment. That's kind of what I was, maybe I took it a little further, but I heard some of that when you're saying bring people together, they each get a piece of it. And that's really cool.
Especially also with the culture of a conductor, because like, you know, the 20s and 30s, there were like people like Tuscany that like would curse at people, and like for example, still like scream at people. And the thing about me is changing that culture, especially how I look at it. Like I'm not old, white, and German. I'm neither of those three. So to have that is but something. But to not, to not necessarily erase, but to say that this is the past. We're here. That I'm not, a car janitor, Tuscany here, any of those people. But rather the fact that I can change and be more inclusive and be more loving rather than have like this toxic behavior. That's really necessary.
Yeah, well, I also think that when it comes to like looking at, say, cultural changes in behavior, I apply a lot of archetypal like umbrella concepts. So when I said in the beginning, like I specialize in all this stuff, I include the phrase self-determination. In a nutshell, there's 3 universal human needs, and it is competence, the skill and the access and the ability intrinsically to do something very well. Autonomy, full ownership of your life, your choices, your body, and interconnection, mutually healthy symbiotic relationships. The power of this is not just throw these needs together and you're good, you check out the list. It's more of when you put these 3 together, they combine and make something new. And I focus on that as like this nice ground floor in starting whenever I interact with people and how I live my life. And it makes it nice and it's not very limiting. It's very simple and I can apply it to any situation. But other people will focus on, say, one issue, whatever issue they're passionate about, whatever their belief is, whether for me it's like youth rights as a subset, or if you care about animal welfare, or if you're looking at race issues or gender, whatever it might be, a lot of people I found will take their like top section or they just don't have that foundation that shows the ways that we're all human beings and it's like connected, in another person's shoes. Like if I was in your shoes, I could have the same, like a similar experience as you. That's part of what I'm hearing.
Well, most of what I do is, again, bigger on, well, mine is mostly bigger ensemble. I don't know, I just have this thing where I feel like with a bigger ensemble, I can create more impact, more volume, more people, I don't know. And not that a smaller ensemble can't do that, but just subconsciously, I guess I gravitate towards that bigger sound. Not necessarily big band, but
Big band's like a different thing than like a large band.
It's
a lot for like wind ensembles.
Okay.
A lot of really good works for that.
Cool, that's exciting. Okay, were you going to continue?
It just my thing about writing for whatever reason, I feel like I have to make people have to listen to it and be impacted by the chordal structures and textures and everything. It has to affect everybody in some way, or else I haven't done my job.
Yeah. So you're kind of in line with like what I was saying about polyphony, giving the opportunity to give something a meaningful role to each instrument. Yeah. So is it like you're saying you really don't want any section or instrument to be filler, kind of? In a way?
Well, there's a time and a place for that. More like the overall piece has to impact the audience. I don't want somebody sitting in the audience listening to it saying this is boring. That I have a hard time. I have a hard time writing music that doesn't involve people in it. And well, in terms of making every part interesting, I'm always looking at not just the vertical alignment of every part, but the line of each part. How does each line contribute? Is every part getting something interesting?
Yeah, that's true. Like, I mean, there are ways to make really simple things interesting too. I mean, the simpler it is, the more likely you're just going to be using a scale. And then here's whole notes across like this whole section, melody on top. But there's plenty of options in how to make that stuff interesting too. I mean, in some of my music, I have that, but it's not very often. I kind of touch on that where like here we're playing some straight chords, like transitioning, but then I kind of get back out of that and I play with syncopation, even if it's like slower, either syncopation or maybe trills or other effects or whatever. But yeah, with the like size of the group, you get different types of impact with different sizes. And you're going for the kind of, are you going for like a movie sound?
Could happen to be that,
Yeah.
but it could also, within that ensemble, it could just be two players playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I found that it's easy to have the big dramatic impact of like a full orchestra, timpani, everything, whatever, deluxe woodwinds, brass, etc. But then it's really easy to be very personal and like intimate in sound if you have small groups. And I found it's easy to do that if I mix and match different timbres that are really different from each other. I don't know quite what that is, but that's how I hear it. Like Will and Hart has a very strange instrumentation. I'd probably do an arrangement for it live because I don't know if it would balance that well. When I first made it, I was just like, well, let's just do this. It's piccolo, English horn, and two bassoons, two trombones, piano, acoustic guitar, and upright bass. And I mean, if you threw that group on like a hot day and they have to travel and it's like air conditioned in the building, good luck with intonation there. But it like the piccolo has that because it's the mid range for the piccolo as an example of like that intimacy. Flute has like this stronger sound to me, and when I hear piccolo in the same range, it's like the mid low range. There's such a quietness to it. I don't. There's like such a the timbre. I can't even quite describe it. I don't know. But like if I were to like throw something at someone who's like new to composing and they're overwhelmed, they're like, Jack, give me some direction. I'm improvising, I'm playing. Help me out, brother. And I would say 80% of what you need to explore as a beginner is the interaction between range and timbre. They influence each other, they define each other in some ways. Maybe range defines timbre more than the other way. But if you mess around with the combinations, I mean, there's probably millions of combinations of two of the same or different instruments with different notes. Millions of combinations, and you can kind of generalize from there. But that's one of my focuses that helps make those decisions, I guess. Yeah. What's your composing style, or do you have anything else?
Yeah, I honestly I resonated with a lot of your ways of composing because I also am like my introduction to composing was basically like a mix of improvisation and music theory. So like just picking up my violin every day. I like just play a couple things. I save a recording, and like after a while, I realized, hey, wait, I could make stuff out of this. And for the most part, my sort of vision, it's ranged a lot, but a lot of it has dealt with a lot of like folk music and things like that. So a lot of the instrumentation I hear are like more like folk style instruments, and so like it's trying to balance written music and like just hear like just oral like writing in a way. So like it's a lot of that, and I've also like recently started getting into vocal writing and like sort of singer songwriter stuff.
Yeah.
So I keep a good balance, of course, especially now I'm here. I mean, for me, it's a lot easier to write instrumental stuff, specifically strings. I've yet to write wind stuff yet, but it's that sort of like that like balance. I want to keep a good balance between like sort of quote unquote classical music, and also like more modern type music.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of cool. I'm a very like contemporary. I think the word is contemporary, not modern, because modern is a different thing. But I think that Dom told me this a long time ago. I think that I'm a more contemporary composer. I just my main experience in the classical world was in like middle and high school, and I would just like arrange friends and we'd start doing something, and that was really fun. But also like I was exposed to and really influenced by the kind of fusion multi-genre creators, like if you've ever heard of like Imogen Heap. No? Okay, she does a lot of classical electronic crossovers and then puts the lyrics over them, and it sounds like just slightly pop-like. Just because when you throw lyrics in something and you don't have a specific genre, sometimes that's the way it just goes. But also, like 90s video games, often they have like these kind of funky electronic classical things that just kind of keep winding. Has anyone ever ever played or heard of the games Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie for Nintendo 64?
Well, before their time, they're all pretty young.
Oh, well, I guess, I mean, maybe, possibly, but those games are like played a lot, and we're also like really connected these days, so like plenty of people I know, they like all kinds of things, you know? Internet?
18, 22.
Okay, I'm 24 now.
Okay.
Yeah. Marginal difference. But yeah, though Grant Kirkhope is an incredible composer, and he does video game stuff mainly. And when you do that, to have that like loop where it keeps repeating eventually inside of clockwork, that's really fun.
Cool.
Yeah, I respond to something and then I get on to another thing.
Yeah, I also really like writing sort of stuff that's like sort of like, I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of folk music, which is why I'm more gravitated to writing that sort of thing. But yet, because I grew up, I grew up at home listening to folk music, but like playing wise, I played a lot of classical rap. So it's sort of like I sort of naturally like use those two together without realizing. So it's that, and yeah, I guess that's sort of what I've gone through.
Yeah, well, I mean, is it more of a thing where you really enjoy the combination of folk and classical or other genres, or do you ever feel like you're stuck in like a certain rut from like past composition?
No, I mean there have been times where I would be stuck, but for other reasons. That's another conversation.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a good question.
Okay. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. I have to think about that one.
Before you run out there, I forgot about this. What's your name again? Who's leaving?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Elian.
Oh,
Ellen, okay. Everyone here says, well, people started leaving, I forgot about this. If you like to take a business card, I mean, being a composer, I'm frequently looking for musicians to have like small gigs to compose or to put together like my upcoming album. So you already know.
I can pass up for people.
Okay, I have plenty of them too. I have like a ton. Do you want like just a ton?
Sure. That's a good one.
That's my medical card. I'm glad I didn't give that out. I think they're gone for right now. They're in my backpack, I think. I'll give you some later.
Okay. Let's do some playing.
Yeah, we're kind of running out of time. I don't know if you guys are we running out of time? We could there's so few of us left. If you guys wanted to mess around on the piano, I can show you one of the games that I was thinking of that I call the composing chords game. It's looking at like range and timbre. If you want, we can do that.
If you guys are good in class.
I mean, I have a class of two.
Yeah, but we can also just say that's that.
We might want to that's that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, we should do that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
it's
so
really
much.
nice.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's really excellent.
Yeah, please like stay in contact if you'd like. And as creators, as musicians, we support each other's stuff. I'm in Minnesota most of the time. That's my jam. Yeah. Yeah. Mr. Tommy.
Mr. Jackie.
Oh, Jackie Chan.
Jackie Kennedy, I was thinking.
Really? Oh, wait, Jackie O whatever? Jackety Jack. Yeah.